Here is my personal take on the novel 1984 by George Orwell. Fun fact, it was actually published on my birthday, except 55 years before I was born. Something to quickly wrap your head around is the fact that this novel, called 1984, came out in 1949, which means it came out 35 years before the actual year of 1984. The story itself takes place in 1984, in a dystopian world. Apparently, the author George Orwell wanted to warn his readers, sort of tell them about what kind of future should never come to be after witnessing the Second World War himself. A pretty intriguing idea for a novel, and it certainly raises an eyebrow. Let's take a look into what this book is all about. The story follows the life of Winston Smith, a roughly middle-aged working man who lives in a country called Oceania under the ruling totalitarian government. Totalitarian meaning they control and watch every single little thing and manipulate their people into fearing and respecting them. This is similar to what Hitler's Nazi Germany did back in the 1920s to about the 1940s. As you could imagine, being a citizen in either one of these countries could not have been a very fun experience, although many of them wouldn't have known much better. Except Winston does. Winston knows better. Being intelligent himself, he seeks freedom and independence from this horrible government. He goes to some lengths for it, and that's what this book is all about. The government in 1984 is an extreme example of totalitarianism, people being conditioned to fear the government, technology and psychology being used by the government, and a government swimming neck deep in lies. You can't do nor say anything without the government knowing. You can't even have thoughts that go against the government. Truly, the government defines its own reality. This book actually reminded me a lot of Brave New World, since both the novels sort of give us an inside look into what two very different dystopian worlds could look like. Before I get too sidetracked about the whole connection between the two books, what I can say with certainty is that 1984 was an incredibly thought-provoking book. It showed how quickly the world could collapse and change if the right amounts of power and resources were to fall into the wrong hands. It was a commentary on the dangers of totalitarian governments. What I found really interesting was the overall conformity of the society depicted in the book. Orwell depicted such a terrifying dystopia that was really interesting and intriguing to read about. The unique and creative ways that the government controls everything are products of the writer's own imagination. From the very first page of the book, the vibe throughout the entire thing just kept me on edge. That's also what made it so interesting though. I found that the use of descriptive language and the way that Orwell very slowly and meticulously revealed more and more details about Oceania, its government, and Winston's motives kept me hooked on the novel the whole time. I hear a lot of people complain that books move too slowly in terms of pace, but I would definitely say that 1984 strikes a nice balance of maintaining suspense and keeping me interested. It doesn't reveal too many things at once, while also not taking forever to get into the juicier details of the story. When I did feel like the book was taking its time a little, it would always turn out to be worth it. Longer dialogues or chapters would always lead to something big happening. The novel kept me guessing and got me excited every time I got to sit down and read it. I find it hard to criticize this book or find things to really complain about. Some people might think that some of the story is too melodramatic. Some might say it's unrealistic, absurd, or exaggerated in a way that makes it a bad story. For me personally, I found none of these to be true. Even though there might have been moments where I think to myself, how is that possible, or how does that even work? At the end of the day, it's fictional literature. I, for one, could appreciate it for what it is, and I'm thinking most other people can too. I've heard people on the internet complaining about the ending as well, saying it builds up to nothing or that the ending was disappointing. But without spoiling too much, I would argue that the book has a perfect ending that cements the reason why it was written in the first place. It was written as a warning to the people, George Orwell's vision of exactly what should never happen. So to wrap up, I definitely recommend this book. I would give it a solid 10 out of 10. This book is an experience, and it's something that'll definitely get your mind moving. I say you should definitely give it a read if you ever get the chance to.